born 8th of July 1995. Bill, where were you born?
28 John Street, Erskineville, 4th of the 9th, 1910.
And did you grow up in Erskineville?
Until I got married, 35.
Gosh. And did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had, there was 9 of us. That made 6 brothers and 2 sisters. The youngest died practically at birth.
Just a minute. Did you say that the youngest?
Yeah, the youngest sister, Kathleen, she died about 6 weeks old.
What happened? What was the problem?
Oh, I couldn't tell her. I just remember the mother nursing her in the yard and keep wetting her lips with water. The father worked up the country.
This was your dad?
Yeah.
Right.
And they had to call for him, and she died when she was about 6 weeks old. What from, I don't know.
Where were you in the family? What position were you in the family?
I was about the 5th, the middle.
Right. How many were there altogether?
Well, there was Ernie, the eldest. He died a couple of years ago at 93 and 7 months old. Lal died in St George Hospital a few years ago. Then there was Gladys. She died in, I think, in Maryville Hospital, say 10 years ago. And there was Les, then myself, then George, Albert, and Kathleen.
Oh, gosh.
That was a family.
Yeah.
And in the family, they all, bar Kathleen, married, and Grace, my wife, and I are the only 2 left out of my family and the spouses. And we've been married 60 years next January, the 25th.
God, there's not many people that have stayed together so long.
Well, we're trying to see who's going to win the fight.
Oh, right.
We've only had the one.
It's been going for 60 years.
Hasn't finished yet.
What are your earliest memories?
Well, I can remember just down across the railway line, there was a hotel there. I think it's a boarding house now, Cosmopolitan Hotel. And they used to cater for the workers from the railway, Everleigh Workshop, at the gate just near this side of McDonaldtown Station, and thousands of the workers used to come and drink in the Cosmopolitan. Then they closed that gate to extend the railway line, put extra line in, and that finished off that hotel, and it became one of the biggest slow grog pubs in Sydney. Tom Hardigan was the publican.
That's near Murphy's place.
Just down from Murphy's.
Yeah.
Just down from Terry Murphy. Terry Murphy lived opposite John Street where I was born.
Yeah.
And the fella who lived there before Terry, his name was Crew, and he was an employee of the Erskineville Council, and his daughter had a little shop on the corner up the top of Albert Street at Erskineville Road. That was when the Police Boys Club was the old Vic Picture Show. And next door to the picture show was this big house that the owner of the picture show lived. His name was Bob Evans. Then when the talkies came in, that finished the picture show off, and I believe they demolished the big house and they built a factory, and I don't know whether it's a shoe factory or they used to manufacture the heels for women's shoes. Then of course it became a stadium.
Yeah, did they have fights in there? Did they have fights at that stadium?
Fights, yeah, and more wrestling, like I think they were middleweights, about 12 stone, and one of them was an employee, I don't know, Alexandria or Redfern Council. And there was one of them, a ginger bloke, I think he worked in St Peter's Brick Tips to earn an extra dollar in the Depression years.
Right, just a minute. What me to do earliest memory?
Well, I was about...
Talking about your earliest memories.
Well, the earliest I can remember, I must have been about 2 years of age. And I walked up outside this Cosmopolitan Hotel and a woman, she was a single woman, who lived with her father in Pine Street. She used to supply the family with eggs, bring them down. And she saw me up there and brought me down home. So I must have been about 2 years waddling off.
Gosh.
Well, that then I can remember, like during the war years, 18 war years, before I went to school, and I remember going to school first day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it?
Played up, I wouldn't go to school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember up the top of John Street there's a little weatherboard shop, and the mother bought some wheat bix, I think it was wheat bix biscuits, round, and put some butter on them and sent me to school that way. And that's about the earliest.
Okay. Now, what kind of a house did you live in?
Well, the father used to call it a pigeon box. It was only a little weatherboard cottage, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a kitchen. And we had to put our own bath in, because in those days they only had galvanised tin taps to do the washing and the bath in. So we'd all have to get in the same water, one after the other.
Would you,
You know,
would you have your bath in the kitchen?
out in a bit of a laundry where there's a field copper. It was opened and had a canvas blind down.
Bit chilly in winter?
For privacy.
Bit chilly in winter?
Oh, I can't remember, but I don't think baths were a daily habit in those days. Anyone.
Yeah. Well, what kind of a place was Erskineville for kids, you know, in the 19s, you know?
Oh,
14,
I'll
15.
give you an example. Everything right? We lived opposite a church, and I believe the Muslims bought it now. It was the Church of England, or Church of Christ, I think. We were directly opposite, and we used to play cricket and football out in the street, because no other entertainment then. There were no TVs or wirelesses or anything like that. And one Sunday, while the church was having a service, all the kids in the street were playing, I think, football, because it was in winter. And the minister, his name was Carter, and he owned a pickle factory in Monk's Lane, Alexandria. And he got the police down there, and there were 16 of us, all got booked by the pot. And there were 3 turned 16, and once you turned 16, you had to appear in the senior court, Newtown. But under 16, okay, under 16 you had to go to the Bow Street, called the Children's Court. And there was 13 of us appeared down there, and I appeared on my 13th birthday, the 4th of September, 1923.
But what were you charged with?
Me?
What were you charged with?
Obstructing the church service. Well, this fellow was such a big fellow, if he had 6 people there, it was crowded. And his voice was so big and booming, it would go over all the rest of them.
Oh,
And anyway, we only got a caution. I don't know, and I think the 3 who appeared in Newtown only got a caution too. It was so ridiculous.
What was it like at the court? Did they have police there giving evidence?
I think the police and the rest gave the evidence, yeah. I think so, I can't remember.
What could they say? You were playing football? What could they say? You were playing football on Sundays?
obstructing the service, I think. I think that was a charge. And I remember when the 13 of us standing in front and the magistrate there, and there was a lot of young kids were getting paraded outside, and I turned around to have a look, and the magistrate said, if you don't take notice of me, he said, you'll be out there with them. I remember that very plainly. But just before we appeared into court, my brother, two up from his stand, he's only about 5 foot high and about 4 foot in weight. He went over and challenged this Carter, who was a massive big man. And he said, oh, apparently, he said, I made a mistake with that brother of yours, me. But anyway, I mentioned this to the magistrate. And I think the policeman said my brother threatened Carter. I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty... and he's only a little bloke. He was, matter of fact, he was to be a jockey. That's how small he was. And he was the first one of the family who died. He worked the dock down Willamaloo, and he's the first one who died. Well, that was like the early, but prior to that, I remember a celebration down Erskineville Park from the Erskineville school kids, and I only saying to the wife the other day, I thought it might have been the end of the war. Well then, if it had been the end of the war, I think the Catholic school kids would have been there too. So I don't think they were there, but there might have been a celebration of Erskineville School being reaching 50-year-old or something. And we were given 3 bits of fruit and a bun. And the fruit shop up the top of Charles Street is all demolished now. It was owned by Trips. We used to call it Trippy's Fruit Shop. And they supplied the fruit, because there was cake shops. I don't know where the buns come from, but every kid in Erskineville School down in Erskineville Park.
And they had a sort of picnic?
Yeah, a bit of a picnic. And the football oval was in the centre. And just as you leave Erskineville, like St Mary's, you go into the park, there was a big rose garden, like a picket fence around it. Well then, as the kids were going in, they had to have pannikin with a string around the neck so they wouldn't leave it. And I don't know whether we had lemonade or milk, I don't know. And when we was going up to get the fruit and that in a bag, I said thank you, and the woman who gave me, she said to another woman, she said, the first one who ever said thank you to me. And that only come back to my mind last Thursday when I was talking to the wife, about this meeting. Just remembered it. So discussing with the wife a lot of things that's come back to me. So I said, I remember when they concreted Erskineville Road. You want me to continue on that? Up over the railway line, before you hit Newtown Bridge, in Erskineville Road, there's a bit of a bridge, and it used to be up, and that was all clay. And when it rained, and a lot of rain, and the vehicles in those days was a 4-wheel wagon, and 4 horses used to pull them. Well then, they'd taken up, whether it was wheat or wool or what, I don't know, but the wheels used to sink down to the axle, so they take the 4 horses from the back truck, put it in the front, and that'd be the 8 horses to pull it up over the bridge, and parked outside a timber yard, which Ogden's timber yard. Ogden owned it. And then they give the horse a bit of a spell, they come back and bring up the other one.
And now you said you can remember when they concreted that road?
Yeah, and then after that they concreted the road, all hand-mixed concrete, because of no concrete mixers in those days.
When was that about? When would they have done that? Are you talking in before 1920?
Oh.
Or later? You're not sure. That's okay.
I couldn't, well, you might be a year or two one way or the other.
But around the 1920 mark?
Yeah, and
you were a kid still? Were you a child still?
Oh, I was still at school.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just talking about Erskineville generally, what sort of a place was it for kids at that time?
Oh, plenty of fights.
Yeah?
Oh, plenty of fights, yeah. Survival of the fittest was the motto of Erskineville in those days.
Were there a lot of kids in the neighbourhood?
Oh, there were no chemist shops and modern methods in those days.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, were you aware if people use contraception at all, or this wasn't an option?
No, I think the only contraception in those days was a syringe and carbolic soap.
What did they
The women
do?
used to syringe themselves out when they become pregnant.
Like abortion?
But of course that was out of my line and that. I was too young to know.
So were you aware at all, or even later on, of abortion?
There was nothing like that. Oh, there used to be a woman around it, named Hunter. She used to get about with a catheter in her pocket. And I believe that the police wouldn't touch her because she used to look after the police's girlfriends.
Oh, right.
This is the stories. I was too young to know actually what an abortion was,
Yeah.
or actually what sex was. Because we used to say there was 9 in my family, and the kids used to say, "Oh, your father and mother 9 times. I've only got 1 in my family. My father and mother only had 1." This is the talk.
Right.
Because we were innocent. We knew nothing. Not like the kids of the day.
Yeah. And did you get any sex education at all?
No. Only sitting in the gutter telling dirty yarns. That's all sex education.
So your parents never ever said anything to you?
No, I remember, I can't tell you how old. I was working and my mother said, "Anything you want to know, come and ask me."
That's what she said?
Yeah.
And did you?
I think I learned by experience.
All right. And what's this business? You mentioned this carbolic soap. Would people, what's
Carbolic soap used to be a soap that the average person used to use because of lice and vermin.
Right.
And sand soap used to scrub their floors, but because there was no carpets or linos in those days, used to scrub the floors and tabletop with them, and whatever, with the sand soap and scrubbing brush.
So that carbolic soap was pretty strong disinfectant
Yeah,
sort of stuff?
it was a red colour,
Yeah.
carbolic, yeah.
Right, and people could use that as a contraceptive after the...
Like the women when they got pregnant,
right.
they used this bulb with
Yeah.
their vagina and...
Did it work? You don't...
Well, I'm here.
Yeah. Must have...
And hey, brothers and sisters.
Couldn't have been too good a method. What kind of a kid were you?
Kid?
What sort of a kid were you?
Oh, I'm not a bad kid. Yeah. I remember when I was a young kid, I was probably about 8, something like that. I found a snake in the Erskineville. The only school I've been to, Erskineville School, which is only 1 step above kindergarten.
Right.
And I found a snake out there, about 3 foot.
A snake?
Head chopped off.
Oh, yeah.
And I put it in the teacher's drawer. And remember, he had a beard. We used to call him Mary Bopkin. And our headmaster was a little fat bloke. We called him Poison Gut. You devilment, you want?
Yeah.
So anyway, I put the snake in this Mary Bopkin's drawer. And anyway, the teacher asked who put it there, because Bill Schwebel, and I had to take it up and bring it home. But I didn't bring it home, I put it in the sewerage in the middle of the street, John Street.
You put it in where?
Down the sewerage in the middle. In John Street, it comes down and drops to the centre, and that's where the sewerage was. And when there was a hell of a lot of rain, it used to flood up because I suppose the outlet was only about 6 inches, and the water used to come up, and I'd wake up at night in the home, and the water would be up, and I remember the sewer rats swimming around in the bedrooms and all over the place until the water subsided, like it stopped raining, and it went down the sewer. In the 30s, you still right?
Yeah.
In the 30s, they had what they call relief work. I think it was 2 weeks in 5, but they were called dole work. And they reconstructed that sewerage, made it much bigger. So I don't suppose that happens now.
Yeah, but did you actually have raw sewage going through your bedroom?
Not the raw sewerage, no, the storm water sewerage. Oh no, they had the toilet sewerage.
All right, sorry.
Oh, they had the toilet, ordinary toilet.
Oh, so you're talking storm water, and would come into your house?
It was a dip in the road. It's still the same. I remember when it got sealed. I'll tell you the story about that. And the outlet was only about 6 inches, because it had the gutter and this concrete or rock, whatever it was, and any of our balls used to go down there. You could climb down and get it.
All right.
Yeah, and I think the outlet for the rainwater was only about a 6 inch, and with the storms it used to flood up and go into. But the people who owned the house we lived in, their foundations are still down there. 3 two-storey houses still down there, about 3 foot from the ground. They wouldn't get that.
Right.
Our home was built, say, about 6 inches off the ground. So the flood would come up and the water would rise, and you can like lay in bed and you can paddle your hand in the sewer water. And I remember, as I said, the sewer rats crawling around. Yeah, this is true. They're about like a kitten.
Oh, gee. Well, what was your address?
28 John Street. It's demolished now. It's fell to pieces.
No wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what sort of a family do you come from? How would you describe your family?
A real down working class family. My father's a hod carrier.
What's that?
Well, they used to have so like that, and a back on it, and a stand down here. Used to carry it on the shoulder. Suppose they used to carry about 18 bricks, and then they want cement. They'd fill it up with cement, and they'd have it on their shoulder and take it up and empty it out. And then if it rained, there was no public holiday. I don't think there was any public holidays. There was no sick leave, and there was no, like if you didn't work, you didn't get paid. And I've been out with the father, I remember, on a job out at Earlwood, when Earlwood was starting to get built. And they started to sprinkle, and they had to go into the shed, and the foreman put down the time that they stopped because of the rain. And then when they went out to work again, when they started work again, and in between the rain, they never got paid. And there was work, you know. And then there used to be a benevolent society down at Key Street, railway. And I remember the mother, the pram, the kid in the pram, another one at the end, and I used to hang on to the watchman, and we had to walk from John Street, Erskineville, down the quay to the Benevolent Society, and we used to get what we called Santa's grain hose breakfast, and a loaf of bread, and they'd get the bread meat thrown over there like that. You put it in the sugar bag, and have to wheel it back home. That's like food. That's when the father couldn't get a job.
When was that? What years are you talking of in that they were?
Oh, before the 20s.
Gee.
The father enlisted and they came down to the house, and when he saw the 9 kids, the officer in the army said, he said, you've done your duty there, and wouldn't take him.
Oh, that was a relief.
9 kids.
Yeah.
Because, well, we'd have to say 8 kids because I think the little youngest daughter died before. In that period.
Yeah. How did the First World War affect life in your family?
The war?
Yeah. The first one. What can you remember about it?
The only thing I can remember about it, I was, 4 or 5. I had a coat made out of an army uniform, and in the winter time it was cold, and your nose running and all that. And the lady next door, I remember saying quite plainly, she said, another stripe for you? Where all this, rubber. Yeah, Mrs. Cross. Mrs. Cross, yes, her name was Mrs. Cross, yeah.
Okay, so your father was a labouring man.
A labour, yeah.
And it seems that he did he have permanent work, or it's just like when he could get it?
Well, you can get it with a building game.
Yeah. Was common? Like most people in the area worked that way?
Yes, that was the working conditions of the working class in that days. And that was when the trade unions were starting to come up and stopped all that. You got sick pay and you got holiday pay. All the conditions that we're enjoying today, we can only thank the trade unions for.
Was your dad, did he get active in the union? In unions or politics? Was he politically involved?
Oh, no, no, Dad. I think Dad was more for his kids than that.
Did he have things like, did he have shoes to wear to work?
No, he had big clot up of boots, and then Friday when he come home from, he'd wash his grey flannel to take us out of the weekend. And we used to go up to Brightly Sands long before it ever got built.
Yeah.
For train drive and the steam trams, steam trains.
What sort of, how would you describe your mother? What did she do?
Washerwoman, incubator.
Yeah. Did she work outside the home ever?
She used to do a bit of midwife. There was a nurse lived in Wilson Street, Newtown, which is Wilson Street. Anyway, up the street. And when she wanted a midwife to help her, like with bringing children, she used to get mum. Because having 9 kids, she was experienced.
Yeah.
I remember a time, I can't tell you how old, but I was only young. People come from Alexandria, their baby was dying, and they come from my mother to come over because of her experience to save the kid. And I really think she saved that baby's life, if I can remember. But of course, this is all coming from me now. I didn't know it couldn't remember it yesterday, but your question you're bringing it back. Yes, I'm sure Mum saved that child's life.
What was the matter? Do you know what was the matter with it?
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, what were?
I didn't know if a person had influenza or a leg off.
Yeah.
We were too young.
Yeah. What were common illnesses? What were the sort of illnesses that people got in those days?
Oh, more colds than anything else, I think. You couldn't afford to buy good clothes. Up top of this street, there's a factory. You see the factory up top of Watkin
Up on
Street?
King Street, yeah.
In Wilson Street?
Yeah.
That used to be a baker's. And when I was a young, Schwebel's bought it out. Supposed to be a baker from Germany. And they used to get the flour in bags, like sugar bags,
Yeah.
like that. And the truck would pull up in that lane, just up in the lane, and they had a horse, and they had a hoist up the top. They used to tie the rope around the bag and get the horse to pull up. That's how they used to take all the flour up the top. Well then, Dad used to get flour bags from there for blankets for us. And I can remember the mice running all over the bed, nibbling this flour. People in Erskineville, they were poverty-stricken. Nothing like, people today, they talk about the needy today, is nothing compared to those days. There's 48 hours a week you worked. I started work on 48 hours.
And how old were you when you started?
14.
What did you start working at 14?
The first job I had was a foundry down in Maryville. I can't think of the name. 7 threepence a week.
And what did you do?
What you call a wrapper, the moulders. And as they're taking the mould off the moulds, you have to get a hammer and tap it so that it gets lifted up. 7 threepence. September, it was dark when I went and dark when I came home from work. I only stayed a few days. Then I got a job.
You have a telephone call.
The interview with Bill Schwebel at Newtown. It's day 2 because we had technical problems yesterday. Bill, I don't know where we got up to. I think we asked about what sort of family that you came from. Who controlled the finances in your family?
There were no finances to control.
Really? Well, who looked after the rent and...
Oh, the landlord lived next door.
Right.
Mother lived in the house for 38 years, and when she passed away in that house, the rent was 11 and 8pence a week.
Really?
For 38 years. I think she got buried on a Tuesday, I think, and they put the hand out for the rent on the Thursday.
Gee. And did your family rent all their lives? They never owned their own home?
No. Only the kids started to buy their own after the war.
Right. Did your mother, was she responsible for the budget and, you know, paying all the bills and organising that?
Oh yes, she was a cook, and every Friday night we'd have to go up the road and buy, say, 2 or 3 tuppenny pieces of fish and tuppence worth of chips, and then to go through the family. We have to wait till the father come home from work because they got paid on a Friday night. So there wouldn't be any money in the house until he came home, and then the kids would have to run up the street in Erskineville Road to buy the fish and chips.
Right.
I think that was a ritual on a Friday.
A ritual?
Yeah, well, that's every Friday, not for religious reasons, because we're not religious.
Yeah. Did your father stay employed, you know, across the 19s and across the war period and up to 1920? Did your father stay in work most of the time?
Oh, I should imagine he did.
You don't remember any long periods of unemployment?
Oh, no, with the short periods. That's when we went down to the Benevolent Society, like the mother had a baby in the pram and another one sitting on the end, and then another one hanging onto the handles of the pram, and we'd walk from Erskineville down to Key Street Railway Square for the Benevolent Society, and that's where you'd get a loaf of bread thrown at you, and some grainos, I think, was like a porridge morning breakfast, and a lump of meat, and you'd get it in a sugar bag.
Could they wrap the meat up in paper or anything?
Oh, I remember them throwing it over onto the counter.
Just a lump of meat?
But whether they wrapped it up or not, I don't know. I can't remember that part.
Can you remember how your mother felt about having to go to the Benevolent Society?
Well, just a necessity. That or starve.
Yeah.
Because there was no dole, or if you didn't work, you didn't eat.
Yeah. Can you remember them? Did she ever make any comment about how they delivered that kind of charity?
Oh, no. I think she's just pleased to get food. See, our religion in those days, there were a lot of Catholics were around about and Protestants and that. But my family, our religion was food, clothing and shelter.
And your parents weren't affiliated with any religion at all?
I never believed in religion.
So
never.
You never went to Sunday school or anything?
Just because it's opposite and Christmas parties.
Yeah. So you go to the Christmas party?
That was the only time I went to Sunday school, when it come to Christmas time, for a Christmas tree and a Christmas party.
Right. Did your family celebrate Christmas?
Well, the only time in the year you'd have a chicken in those days was Christmas Day.
Right.
It's the cheapest food today, but in those days it was very dear. And I really think, without being too sure, they'd buy a chicken and it'd take them about a month to pay it off at 6pence a week or something like that.
Yeah. Wouldn't people keep chickens in their backyard for eggs? Wouldn't you keep chickens in your backyard?
Our backyard was divided by the owner of the property next door. He had a back fence dividing the backyard, and he had his pigeon locked and a lot of building material in it.
Oh. So did you have much space in your backyard for playing?
Very, very little. And yet the mother was very fond of her garden.
Mm. What sort of things would she have in her garden?
I wouldn't tell, I wasn't interested in anything like that. I was
Vegetable
more
fruit?
interested out in the street playing with the
Yeah.
other kids.
Yeah, but would your family grow vegetables, say, in the garden?
Oh no.
Look, what about politically? Were your parents politically involved?
Political?
Yeah.
No,
Not at all.
no.
Well, what about in the
But
uni?
I remember my father used to read, I think it was the News. There used to be two papers in those days, News and the Sun. And I think the News went out of action, about 1920 to 2030. But the father used to read the paper, and the light in the house was a little gas pipe from the wall with a little burner. It was very, very dark and dim, but I can remember him reading the paper, like to the mother, and for us kids to hear, but it was over our head.
Yeah, and you can't remember what the issues were that concerned him. The things that was. Can you remember your parents talking about things? Well, what about the conscription campaign in World War One? Can you remember talking to your parents talking about that?
No, I was too young.
What about the Wobblies? They were around then.
I don't know. I remember them. Yeah. I don't remember them. I remember hearing of them. And of course, wowser was a very common word.
Yeah.
That was a provocative word to call somebody a wowser.
And what did it imply, calling somebody a wowser?
A wowser was a person who was always in church and wouldn't have a drink. Wouldn't have it. But I think a wobbly was a workers' movement, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the first time I heard that wobbly from many, many years.
Yeah.
I can't recall actually what wobbly means.
Can you remember any election campaigns that were happening? Like,
Yes, yeah.
What can you
In
remember?
those days, in Erskineville, I think a Labor bloke would stand up on a box and he'd be cheered and cheered and cheered. Whether they knew what he was talking about, I don't know. But if a UAP, United Australian Party, that's the coalition as today, he'd get pelted with tomatoes.
really?
They wouldn't listen to him.
Where would they stand up?
On the corner of Charles Street and Erskineville Road, there used to be a fruit shop there called Trips, and it was called Trippies. I'll talk about that when you want me to.
Yeah.
I think there was about 5 shops. They're demolished now because we was up there just now. I've been demolished when they was building Erskineville Road.
And so they'd stand.
They used to stand up there at Spruik, and the Liberals used to get belted with tomatoes, no matter what the Labor would say, they were cheering him. Which, yeah, it used to be fun for us kids in those days, watching them. And then up the corner of Brown Street, the next street back, I remember we used to go up there too, listening to them.
That's Brown Street, Newtown.
The next street along Wilson Street. And up the top, there was Marcus Clark's had a retail store there, and that got burnt down next to the Salvation Army. And it, I don't know what it is now.
Can you remember, did people heckle and ask questions? And those people standing on boxes and spruiking. Can you remember any of the things that they were on about? What the issues were?
No. No, I don't think they knew themselves.
Right. And your dad was never associated with any political party?
No.
Okay. Well, what sort of discipline was used in the house?
Discipline?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's very much discipline. We were given a very, very open, free life.
Really?
Yeah, like there's 8. Like the youngest sister died when she was only a few weeks old, Kathleen. And we were given a pretty good free life.
Well, what if you did something that was wrong or that you weren't allowed to do? What would happen?
I don't know. I'd never in my life did I get a hiding or smacking a bottle.
So,
Never.
Gee. So were there rules in the house about, when dinner was or how to treat one another, and they were just understood?
Nothing like that, no.
You don't?
No. We had our particular place around the big table. The young kids had a stool made. There might be 3 of us sitting on the stool. The others have chairs. But we were just interested in eating because food was never plentiful. You right?
It's next door.
Oh. With the meals, how you said you were just interested. What was a typical meal? What was this? What would you have? Would you have your main meal in the evening?
Oh,
The main meal?
I think in the 30s, well, the 20s and 30s, and I think it was very common in Erskineville, bread and dripping pepper and salt.
Did you have that?
Oh, day in, day out. Butter was too dear, or dry bread and jam, or syrup, golden syrup.
God.
But you can never know you have a feed, but I remember when I was a kid I always had to go up the road and buy a half a pound of blade steak for the father to have for breakfast, because in those days he'd have to breakfast at 5 and he wouldn't have his lunch till 12. So he had to have a good breakfast because of his hot carrying, which was a very, very heavy, manually heavy job, and such a long period. There was no morning teas or nothing like that in those days. There was a small billy and a tin pannikin from to drink out of. And on an open fire.
And what sort of things would he take for lunch to work? Do you remember what he took with him?
Mostly corned beef. Yeah.
And bread?
Yeah, the delicatessen ham and beef shop we called it in those days. Ted Turner was the name of the fella who had it. And every night I had to go up and get threepence worth of corned beef, I think. Threepence worth.
Right. And when he came home, what time would your dad come home from work?
I wouldn't. My father never drank. Never drank. So there wasn't stopping at the local water hole and come home drunk, and then never drank. Never drank.
So what time would he get in?
Oh,
Like if he was starting at 6 in the
I think
morning.
it was about 60 hour a week in those days. I started work at 48 hours.
So was he?
5.5 days.
So do you think he'd turn up at home around 5 or 6 in the evening? Or 4 or 3?
Yeah.
5 or 6?
Oh, about 5 or 6, yeah. But,
It's a long day.
yeah. Oh, it's only in your generation that you get decent working hours. I started work at 48.5 hours, 5 days, and a half a day Saturday. And when I turned 16, I had to go to military training down Erskineville. Yeah.
When your dad got in, what kind of evening meal would you have? What would the
Oh, I
family? Can't remember.
couldn't tell you.
Were there much fruit and vegetables around?
Very, very little. But
You
I
have a
think,
telephone call.
no, Sue, I wouldn't, but I know that the best part of the food in those days was bread and dripping and pepper and salt, mutton fat, pepper and salt, or dry bread and syrup.
Yeah.
Might have had jam now and again.
Did you ever have green vegetables like beans or peas and things like
I can't remember that.
that? Yeah.
I really can't. But I remember in the house was one of those fuel stoves where you put the coal in and the oven was on the side, and every Sunday there'd be baked potatoes, and the potatoes baked in the oven like that was 1,000 times better than the modern potatoes, baked potatoes. Good crispy crust on the outside.
Did you have fruit? Was there fruit for the kids?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't even eat fruit now. So if I'd have been brought up on fruit, I'd be eating fruit today.
Well, can you remember being hungry?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, many a time.
Going to bed hungry?
Yes, going to bed hungry.
Oh, gee.
I remember we used to get a slice of bread, and when we went to bed we used to put it under the pillow and have a nibble, and we went to sleep. And we'd be sleeping in crumbs. Oh yes, that was very. Well, I don't know whether it's every home or happened in a lot of places, but that was my experience.
Did people get sick? Were there nutrition diseases and sicknesses related to nutrition?
Well, they wouldn't know if they were sick.
What about malnutrition?
They wouldn't know it.
Do you have any images of kids in the neighbourhood with malnutrition? You know, big-bellied kids?
No, nothing.
No. Skinny kids?
In those days, I think they were a different animal than they are today, the human race.
Why is that?
Well, we had nothing. We appreciated the little we did have, and we toughened up on that.
What about milk? Was there much milk around?
I wouldn't know.
Don't remember it.
Don't remember. The only thing I remember about milk, they used to come in a little cart, and 2 taps were out the back, horse-drawn, and the brother younger than me turned the tap on, and the milk ran down, but the milk wouldn't charge the mother for it because of our poverty. That was out in John Street. I remember that part. For the first time for many years, I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been pretty bad because I don't think the milkos were loaded.
You
You know how you said before that your father didn't drink and didn't go to the local watering hole, you know, and he wasn't... Was it more usual? Did most of the fathers spend a lot of time at the pub?
Oh, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't condemn that. But I think my father was more concerned with his kids than that type of thing. Because in those days, a glass of beer, like that would be 4p. Then the next was a mug that had a handle on it. That was 6p. And then a schooner of beer in a big glass was 8p, and a pint with a handle was 9p. And I think, just brought me back, father was more for the kids, but he talked about fruit. It just brought me back. When he was in the building game, somebody might want a bit of sand, and he'd give him like a bucket full of sand, and they might give him a 6p or a shilling. And he used to call in to a fruit stall down Railway Square. I don't know how long this went on for, and they used to wear a red kerchief, whatever you call it, like a big red handkerchief around their neck, and take their lunch and that, but they never had a bag. They used to carry the lunch, and they used to bring nearly every night some fruit. You know, that brought me back to remembering that, yeah.
Would that be apples and bananas and oranges?
Mostly oranges and mandarins. Remember the big mandarins we used to get? Yeah, yes. That just brought that back to me.
Yeah.
Because this is 75 years ago, so...
Yes, it's a long time. Well, when you were growing up, and say you got after, 8 or 10 years old, were you expected to contribute to the family in any way? Like, some kids worked as paper boys or bottle assistants?
Yes, I used to sell of a morning, 6 o'clock in the morning I used to get up, and you had to be 12 years of age to get a licence. You had to, like, Labour Daily was a paper. It was a Labour paper, and what I don't think it was registered. No newsagent would sell it. But a little bookshop up in Erskineville Road used to sell it. And I used to get out, go around with, what did I get? Well, about 5 shillings a week for that.
And you did that from the age of 12?
That was before 12.
Before 12.
And then I used to work in a greengrocer's shop up in Erskineville Road. Daddy Bo, Chinese fella. Had 3 sons, Claude, Ben, and I don't know the other, can't remember the other fellow. And Mrs. Bo, she was lovely. She had a bit of a property up in Prospect, just down from the dam. And I used to weigh up potatoes and onions. And the Saturday morning I used to take the delivery in a big cane basket to various customers. And I used to get 5 shillings a week for that too.
And from what age were you doing that?
Remember?
What age were you doing that?
Well, around about the 12 mark.
Yeah. What happened to the money from those jobs?
Oh, all went into the family.
Did you get any back?
Oh yes, I paid a couple of bob back, I suppose. But I don't know whether it was a shilling or a couple of bob.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Oh yes, and down at this, it used to be Hardigan's pub there. It's a residential now, I think. It used to be a penny a paper then, and the publican used to throw over 2 pennies for me. Penny for the paper and a penny for myself. And I used to buy little lollies every morning with them. Yeah. And things like that.
Well, what did the family do for fun? Did your family did they go out together on picnics or the movie, the silent movies?
I think the only fun that I know, the mother used to go to, well, take the kids to a picnic from St Mary's Church. She had friends who were Catholics, and they used to have a picnic. And used to take us out on that, take us sandwiches and milk. And I remember I used to get sick coming home, vomiting in the tram every time we went.
Why? Eating too much junk?
Oh, I think that could be the answer too, eating too much and too much milk. But I think that's about the only... I don't think my mother ever went to the picture show, or the father.
And how often were these picnics? Were they an annual event or once a month? Or?
What's that? The picnic?
Yeah.
Once a year.
Once a year.
I can't remember. Was it? I don't know whether it was to do. I can't remember. But Mrs. Moran was a friend. She lived in Charles Street. She used to take the mother and us kids in. That's when they discovered when I was hard of hearing. Do you want me to? When I was in school, say 9 or 10, there was somebody whistled in the class, and the teacher who whistled, nobody put up their hand, and he said, "Who heard the whistle?" Everybody bar me put up my hand. I did not hear it. Nobody knew I was hard of hearing. Born like it. And because 8 rowdy kids, 7 boys and a girl, so nobody knew about it, because you never had TVs or radios or gramophones in those days. You had to make your own enjoyment. So anyway, the teacher, his name was Plunkett, and the headmaster was Connolly. Plunkett was a left-hander, and when he gave you the cane, he used to aim for the tips of your finger, and if he missed it, he used to ring it up on your knuckles, because that was allowed in those days. And Connolly was a little fat bloke. And anyway, when I was the only one who didn't hear, they sent the father down, and the father went down to school, and I remember I was standing there. His office was only a little place, about as big as a laundry, Connolly's, headmaster. He said, the trouble with your son, he's too fond of protecting others. Nobody realised I was hard of hearing. Well, then this moron I was telling you about in Charles Street, mother sent me around there with a message, 14 or 15, I suppose, 15, say. And big fella, Matt Moran is his name. And he was asking me questions. And I was saying yes and no. So he sent for the mother to come up straight around. And he said, do you know your Billy's got bad hearing? He said, no. He started asking me questions where he should have said no. He was saying yes and this and that and all the rest of it. So they sent me up to Dr. Fitzgerald up in, he used to be opposite the Elizabethan Theatre, which was fullest theatre in those days. And he sent me to a specialist because the father was in the lodge. And sent me down to Macquarie Street, and the elder brother took me down there, and he was a short, nuggety fella. To me, he was an old man, because he might have only been 50, because I was so young. And he said, oh, he said, yours is a very peculiar case. It's what old people suffer from, the nerves are gone. There was no channel for the vibration of the sound to go through to hit the drum, and that was it. So that's when they discovered I was hard of hearing, and I had to go to Royal Prince Alfred. Oh, yeah, that time they took me to Royal Prince Alfred Hospital for the specialist, and he gave me drops to put in my nose and in my ears, and only about say one drop. But if you put 2 drops in, the acid in the what's it called used to explode your head. Well, then military training came in, or was in, and I think it went in when you were 16, and I got noted to go to Forest Lodge depot, military depot, to get my uniforms and things like that. And I hesitated, and eventually went there, and a big officer came to me and he started talking German, and I said yes, no, and they were all laughing. I didn't know what they were laughing about. He said, I'm asking you, how far back are you a German? I said, oh, the grandfather. So anyway, I got exempted from military training.
Because of the German connection?
No, because of my hearing.
Oh, good.
I couldn't, see, he was asking me questions, and I was saying yes and no, but the questions he was asking me was in German language, because he was from the 1418 war.
Right.
And so I got exempted from military training.
But when you were diagnosed and sent to that Macquarie Street specialist, I mean, did they do any, were there such a thing as hearing aids in those days? They weren't.
What from Macquarie Street?
Yeah, could they give you...
His name was Dr. Waddy, W-A-D-D-Y, little nuggety bloke.
But there would be nothing that they could, there were no such things as hearing aids then, were there?
Oh, nothing. No, how they tested it, they had a fork, they put it here.
Yeah.
And a hum or whatever, but you could put it up here, well, behind the ear, you could hear. The passageway was clear. I had that operation where you drill through the skull, and they put a bit of vein here in.
Was that in your childhood? Did you have the operation as a child?
No, I was working in the city council, married. All right. I had to give up smoking for it. That was in 51, August 51. And in Sir George Halliday's surgery was the last cigarette I've had. And I had to give up smoking to get my nerves right for it. And it was a few years after that I got it done. In Gloucester House, Royal Prince Alfred Hospital.
Town, 8th of July 1995. Bill, how old were you when you did finally get a hearing aid? And you were able to hear properly?
Oh, I had a vasectomy on it. It was a vasectomy where men...
You can't have children, get their children.
No, well, stapedectomy. Sorry, stapedectomy. Then this is the first time I made a mistake about that. Stapedectomy. There's not much difference between the two. Stapedectomy. It's a little bone in your ear, like the anvil type
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
Sorry.
Fancy. Anyway,
To the other end.
We're in Erskineville, so anything goes in that go.
So it was after that in the 50s that you finally got a...
Yeah, I'm deaf in that, and this reduced down to 80%, because when I first got done, I could hear a fly a mile away. Yeah, it was so... They said that was because the incision was raw, but then now it's deteriorated down to 80%. So I got a hearing aid for this, and I got one for this ear, but it's too powerful and very hard to cope with. And I went down and got a similar one, only had the workings at the back here.
So most of your childhood, everything was a bit fuzzy for you. For most of your childhood, in terms of hearing, must have been a bit fuzzy for you.
Well, as I said, there's 8 kids in the family. And when you're out in the street playing cricket, you don't whisper. You bellow out the top of your voice, or football.
No wonder you didn't get run over by a tram,
Why?
because you wouldn't hear it coming.
Oh, I wasn't that bad, girl.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
But of course, in the time you're talking about, it was silent movies. And then when the talkies come in, I never used to go that much. I used to go to accompany the wife. That was when Loretta was a baby. But TV, I don't cop TV now. All I can see is the action, but I can't understand what they're saying.
Okay, look, let's look back to your family time when you're growing up in the 19s of this century. What would the family do in the evening? What was a typical evening like in your household?
Oh, sitting around.
Would you read? Would you read? Were there books in the house?
No, nothing like that. The father used to read the newspaper, but what I can't understand, how he could read the newspaper, because out of the wall is this little gas jet, and it was only a little bit better than a candle.
Would you play games? Would the kids play?
Oh, there used to be games. I remember after the war, when like the elder ones, it used to be what they call it. They sit in the corner, kissing the ring or something. No, not kissing the ring. I can't remember what they call it, but a lot of marriages came about that too, with these games in the corner. What they done, I don't know.
No, I don't know what they are.
Oh, I can't. But I remember a fella, Roy Baker, he, friend of the brothers, they come from Charles Street, and the girl next door, she was single. They finished up getting on together in our house and marrying. Yeah. But he moved up to Wollongbar. No. Oh, he was a cleaner in the schools. But when he come back, he couldn't get a job. But he eventually got this public servant job, and he got transferred up. I can't think of the name of the place.
Okay, look, let's go back here. You mentioned before that your father would have a steak, blade steak for breakfast at about 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, can you describe to me your mother's working day? Presumably she got up and cooked that.
Well, on the side, on the side of this fuel stove, they had a gas ring and a black fry pan, and I don't know how old the dripping was. Could have been 6 months old. I don't know. Now today, you use it once and you throw it out, but in those days, just the same as your tea. You put a fresh lot of tea in, and you keep putting boiling water on top of that until it looked just got discoloured. You couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah.
But they had this fry pan, and Mum used to fry the steak in that.
But what time would your mother get up in the day?
She'd always be up ready to get the father off to work. Light the fire in the winter, to warm the house up, and to cook his steak.
And so she would get up before your father?
Yes.
Okay. She would make him breakfast and pack his lunch?
Yeah.
What would she do? Tell me what she done. Tell me, would she get you kids up or?
Nine kids. Most of the, on a Monday be washing day. Had to fill copper, boil up the clothes, and then there was, I think, 4 galvanised round tubs. The first one was about as big as this, and so you rinse from one to all hand wrung, wringing up with your hand, and then sometimes there was a scrubbing board, and then they come down to the final one, which was a smaller, much smaller, the smallest of the lot, and that had record blue in. Because there was an old saying in those days, blue's whiter than white. And the blue used to whiten the white linen. And so it went from one to the other. And then most of us have a bath in that water. Because there wasn't a bath in our house at that time. And, 2 of the brothers put a concrete bath in. Then and I was working for 14 or 15 and got a chip bath reader in. A friend of mine was an apprentice plumber, like kid I played around. He was an apprentice plumber, and he installed a what you want, and that was that. But the galvanised tubs was how you had your bath.
So
then if it wasn't for the copper, like after the washing, you'd take one of the galvanised tubs into one of the bedrooms, and you'd boil the water up in the copper, carry it in the bucket. But most times the eldest would get in first, then the second eldest and the third eldest, and this was life in those days.
You know, to looking at what your mother's life, I mean, did she have to physically work hard?
Oh yes, many a time Mum had to be a house, what do you call it?
Did you say midwife? You mentioned
Midwife. She was very friendly with a nurse. Nurse Merce was her name. And in those days, the women had their babies at home, and Mum would go down and look after the patient or the new mother, and also look after the baby too.
And when you went to school, what sort of things would you have for lunch? Would she make you your lunches to take to school?
I'd have mostly the wheat meal, like they're round, with some butter on it.
Biscuits?
Biscuits, yeah.
Okay. And what time would your mother get to bed at night?
We'd all be in bed before Mum gets in. She'd always be the last.
What do you mean get in? Get in from being a midwife or just finishing up the work in the home?
In the home, when she's in the home. She wasn't a midwife 52 weeks a year.
No.
She might only be midwife, say, 3 times a year.
Yeah. I'm trying to get a sense of what it was like, even though she didn't work outside the home. I'm trying to get a sense of, because
what
her
have
life
your
was
mothers
like.
done in those days?
Yeah. Sorry?
Scrubbing the floors. I think we had lino on the floor. I'm not too sure, but
did you have to help? Given that there were so many boys in your family, did the boys help with washing up and cleaning up after the meal, or any house responsibilities?
I couldn't answer that. I don't remember.
Do you even remember washing the floor?
No, I do not.
Were your clothes ironed? Did you have ironed,
Oh, they were ironed. They were a flat iron. You put them on the gas, and they'd have a rag nearby, and you wipe the bottom, and then you iron them. You'd have 2 of those flat irons. And so while this one was getting used, the other one was getting warmed up, one after the other. And the other rag beside it, and you rub it to get any soot or anything off the bottom, and then you iron it that way.
You talked about sleeping under flour bags. Did you have sheets as well?
I think we only had a bottom sheet. Yeah, we only had bottom sheets. No such thing as pyjamas.
Sleep in your undies? Did you sleep in your underwear and things?
No underwear,
no.
no underwear were worn those days.
Really?
No singlets or underpants.
God.
Oh, I don't think. I can't remember, but I'd say that they came in about the 30s. Yeah, about the 30s you started to wear underpants. In those days, you were more interested in having a feed.
Yeah. So what sort of clothes how many items of clothing would you have?
Well, I suppose you'd have about 2 pair of trousers and 2 shirts. But I remember when Dad used to finish his week's work on a Friday, he used to wash his grey flannel shirt out, not a shirt, like singlet, whatever you call it, washed it out on a Friday to wear it of a weekend. Supposed to be washed about once a week, I'd say. Even though it was heavy work and sweaty work. Well, the flannel was used to absorb the sweat.
Can you remember being cold?
My very word, I remember being cold. You wake up shivering and...
We was going to ask about the war, how it affected your family. Did the First World War have any effect on your family?
I was too young. I was far too young.
Right. What about...
Go on. Yeah.
What about when the troops came back and there was that big influenza outbreak about 1919?
You had to wear a mask with camphor, bits of camphor in it, and wear a mask.
There was also a plague at that time, I think. The bubonic plague made another appearance in Sydney around there. Do you remember anything about that?
No, the only plague was this influenza plague.
Yeah.
It was supposed to have brought the germ back from France.
Yeah.
And we had to wear that. And in those days, they brought back the shingle and the bob. Women wore their hair long, and they got a shingle and
Is it a short haircut?
yeah, short haircut. And the women used to wear lace-up boots.
All right.
And then I remember they got them cut down and into shoes.
Oh, only at that time, after the war?
Yeah, 1418 war, yeah. Yes, that's right, yeah.
Would you say your mother was a happy person? Do you think she was?
Happy with the kids. I don't know about happy with life.
But she was happy with your kids?
Oh, marvellous mother.
Okay. What about your dad? Would you say that he was happy?
He, I don't know. I don't know. But I know he always used to take us kids out.
Yeah,
Of a weekend, up Brightly Sands. You know anything about Brightly Sands?
tell us about it.
Well, Brightly Sands used to be a steam tram run from Rockdale Station down Bay Street to Brightly Sands. And then on the right-hand side there was a big park. And but you had the beach. But the beach was full of broken glass and had a little tin fence. And as your kids, running around, you'd always get cut on the tin fence. Then they built the Brighton Hotel, the big Brighton Hotel. Then they built all the units on that park.
And did you go swimming?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't have to be out in the sun and I'd get sunburnt.
All right. Well, yeah, you were a
Even the
redhead.
day's the same.
So you were a redhead. You were a redhead.
Redhead, freckles. I had a lot of, I suppose the Irish came out into me very pronounced.
You told me before you had a nickname, a couple of nicknames.
Had a couple of,
Nicknames.
oh, Carrots and Bluey. I remember the wife and I, we lived in Marrickville at the time, and a fellow I worked with, he came over and he was telling the wife how in the lunchroom somebody say Jack spoke to you, Bill, or Blue, whatever it was. And I said, well, it wasn't me, it was him. Oh, no, it wasn't me, it was him. So I went around, and remember the wife, she'll tell you, remember the wife saying, well, fancy adults, fancy you. And every one of you has got something wrong with this. You're either got glasses, or you're baldy, or you've got false teeth, well, there's something wrong with you. And he's got bad ears. I remember, Loretta was, what was Loretta? Loretta, well, might have been 2 or 3 years of age in those days. His name was, we called him Sammy Garth. and he was bald when he was about 20. And this is how they used to treat me when I was in the mob. As a matter of fact, I, about 30 years ago when I worked in the City Council, I had practically the same experience. And the big Pommy worked with us, Big Sam, another one, he was prisoner of war, and the other one was in the 7th Division. And he taught me, and I couldn't hear, just before I had my operation. And I heard Big Sam say, listen, Charlie, why don't you just shut up if you can't talk loud enough for the man to hear you? And Sam was blind because of prisoner of war, and practically blind. And he said, why don't you just shut up? He said, well, speak loud enough for the man to hear you. See? So I've had this gig all through my life.
Yeah. Now let's talk about your friends a bit. Who were your friends when you were growing up in Erskineville?
Friends?
Yeah. Who were your mates?
Everybody.
Can you name the families that were in the area at that time?
Oh, there was a family by the name of Webster, and then there's Ernie Deeren. You're not interested in football, are you?
Yeah.
Well, there was one of the greats of St George football, and that 11 consecutive wins. Remember when St George Rugby League won 11 years, one after the other? It's always talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Norm Proven and all that. Well, Papa Clay, his father was a very close friend of me, little Alfie Clay, and he used to have a partner centre, and they called him the boy with the golden horns because he was a blonde. Well, Brian Clay went bald very young, and they called him Papa Clay in the football world. Well, he died up in Queensland a little while ago, and Alfie died, say, about 30 years ago.
And did they were
We were close friends because he was born a little bit up the street from us.
What about the Murphy family? Did you know them when you were growing up? Or?
We only knew the Pat and Phil Murphy. That's Terry Murphy's uncle, his mother's brothers. They lived in George Street, Erskineville, but they were always looking for fight. The Irish, always looking for fight. And they were known as street fighters.
And who are the other... okay, well, getting back, say, to your friends, what sort of things did you do with your friends? What did you do together?
Oh, we went out and had a drink or two.
Now, when you were kids?
Oh, when we were kids?
Yeah.
Oh, played with scooters, billy carts. But there was one period when they was topping the street, like stealing. I can only talk about John Street. They used to be all clay, and every night about 5 o'clock, a stream of sulky, horse-drawn sulkies used to come past the fellas, and they were commercial travellers, and they used to hire the horse and sulky out of 2 livery stables up in Newtown here. Cohen was one, and Corduke was the other. Cullen was a great trotter driver in Harold Park, or Wentworth Park, wherever they raced, Harold Park, I think. And Corduke had a second-hand yard up in King Street there, opposite Georgina Street. And then they sealed John Street. When they sealed John Street, they had on each side of the road blue metal, and they excavated out. And so they lay it down, right? And everything was all done by hand then, shovel in hand. Well then, in John Street, up towards Erskineville Road, there's a lane. There's 2 old weatherboard cottages. Then the lane, and then brick cottages after that. Well then, up the end of the lane, the backyard, was the back fence of a big house in Septimus Street. And in that yard had a big pear tree. And when we were kids, we used to climb over the fence and get all these pears. Well then, when they had these piles of blue metal, some would be on that side near the church, and some would be on the other side, and we would be pelting each other with the pears, green pears, and many times we had a bellyache over it, trying to eat them. And this went on for a long time. Well, when I say long time, how long, I couldn't say whether it was a week or a month.
Yeah.
But that's how we used to amuse ourselves. Or we'd play cricket in the street. As I said, we played football in the church. And I appeared in a children's court when I was 13, on my 13th birthday. And kites, marbles.
Did you make your own kite?
Yeah. Matter of fact, this morning when Loretta was bringing me here, there used to be a cottage halfway over into John Street. And that's been demolished and John Street goes straight down. They had a bamboo blind outside and we used to get in and sneak these bamboos and we'd tie them with string and flour and water. We used to put paper on and old rags, put a tail on, and cotton. Anything like that.
Did they fly? Did they fly?
Yeah, oh yes. Oh yes, sometimes somebody can make a good one. You see a mile up in the air.
You know, you mentioned before scooters and things like that. I mean, did you have toys that were commercially made?
Oh, Christmas time you might get a... in those days, the First War was everything was made in Japan, in Germany.
Right.
And I think that was started that First World War. You see, wars are fought for trade, money. Today they fought for religion, Muslims and Christians. That's today. And everything was made in Germany, You used to get little cork boats and things like that. And train sets, tin train sets. And if they lasted 24 hours, you'd have to have them in your drawer wrapped up in cotton wool. They'd fall to pieces straight away. And the last war everything was made in Japan.
And so kids would play the billy cart. Would you have races up the street or?
Oh yes. What we'd race? Then we'd have we might have a wheel from a bicycle and take all the spikes and that out and have a stick. Run it like that and chase the what's.
Oh.
You do that all the time. But if your mother wanted to go up the shop and buy some food, you're too busy. You had plenty of energy to do that. You didn't have the energy to go and do shopping for them.
Can you remember any adventures that you had with your friends when you were a kid?
Adventures? I don't think there's such a thing in those days.
Yeah. Well, how far were you free to roam in the neighbourhood? How big was your territory as a child in terms of where you could go?
You could go anywhere.
And your parents would let you?
Well, I think the parents were too busy in the house doing the housework.
Okay, so how far did you roam as, say, a 10-year-old?
Oh, I've been down to Maryville, Used to go to University Park.
What would you do there?
Oh, playing around. That was before the swimming pool went there. Be down to Alexandria. There used to be dairy farms down there, and also chicken farms in Alexandria.
Really?
Uh,
Can you remember Chinese vegetable gardens somewhere?
yes.
Where were-
That was the Chinese had their gardens down there in Alexandria.
Right. And what about, did you ever go to the boat races in the Alexandria Canal on Sunday mornings?
No, but I used to hear about them. I used to bet on them.
Was that in the 30s, or do you think that happened when
Oh,
you
that'd
were
be in the
kids?
20s.
20s. Were you into betting
Betting?
as a kid? And did your father bet?
Oh, no. No. The father was more concerned about food.
Yeah. Were there any places that you were not allowed to go?
By the parents?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we just used to roam.
Okay.
I think they were glad to get rid of us, get us out of the house for a bit of quietness.
Yeah. And you never had any odd encounters when you were wandering Marrickville and...
Any what?
Well, anything
Unusual.
unusual.
Unusual?
Yeah.
No.
Thinking back. Did you ever go out to the airport? Mascot.
Long before it became an airport, it was a golf course, the Brighton Golf Course. And I was there one Sunday. A fella from Randwick bought one of Kingsford Smith's planes. The wings used to fold. I can't remember the name, Kingsford Smith Jr. or something.
That would have been Kingsford Smith.
Kingsford Smith, my dear.
Yeah.
My word, it was his plane. And the wings used to fold back. And it was on the Brighton Golf Course. I was there with two fellas, Jack and Jimmy Punton was their name. Come from Marrick. I worked with Jimmy, and Jack worked for Bradshaw, the big carters about now, which they'd be dead now because they're older than me. And this plane came down, and one wing folded down, and the fella, he was only a passenger in it. He had a pilot, but the passenger was the bloke who bought it from Randwick. He bought it off Smithy. And they came down and they both got killed. And I can't remember the time, but the fella had a watch, and when the crash stopped the watch, and the ambulance called for the ambulance, and instead of the ambulance coming one way, it came the other way. And it was about a half hour late, come to pick it up. If I'm not making a mistake, there was a creek there, something to stop the ambulance coming the way down Bay Street, Brightly Sands, had to come right around and come through Marrickville, Mascot Way.
And you were there when that crash happened?
I was there and I saw that crash.
What's been the impact? Would that have been in the 20s when you were talking?
Oh, 18, what would I be, about 18 or 19, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, say round about the 1930 mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Kingsford Smith. No, it was one of his planes. It was one of the wings folded, and the pin that held or the bolt, whatever, came loose or something.
Yeah.
And if I'm not making a mistake, I think this fella bought it for £32,000. I'm not too sure about that.
God.
See, there was an event in that period where I knew a fella who lost 32,000 backing racehorses. So I don't know whether I'm mixed with that 32,000 for that, or 32,000 for the plane.
Yeah. Okay, look, let's go back. Before we've talked about your schooling, and you mentioned that the principal particularly disliked you. The principal didn't like you at your school. Is that right?
I think it was more about my hearing, because I remember one time this plunket, he had a motorbike and sidecar. He had an accident and he was off school, or it might have been a fortnight, 3 weeks, and a woman teacher came, and I was always at the bottom of the class, and I remember a lot of the pupils saying, "Gee, you were very good today." He had me scared, and I couldn't concentrate or anything. But they used to come on and say, "Well, you were very good today," like the pupils,
Yeah.
workmates, and schoolmates.
Yeah. Well, what was it like at school? What can you tell me about? What subjects did you learn?
Oh, yeah, arithmetic and geography and a little bit of history. But old old Connolly used to get two.
Sorry.
Old Connolly, we called him Poison Gut. He was such a, at the kids' school, and another teacher was there. He had a beard, you know, and we called him Mary Bobkin, I think it was. Mary Bobkin. And old Connolly always wanted us to sing. He was mad about us singing.
And what would he have you sing? What would you sing?
Oh, what was going on there? I remember one of the schoolmates from Alexandria got up and he sang Barney Google. And old Connolly used to call him Barney Google after that. He knew no song. See, in those days, there'd only be a new song come out every 12 months. Now it comes out 3 or 4 times a day.
Well, where would you hear songs? Because there was no radios.
Well, there was vaudevilles.
Did you go to vaudevilles?
Yeah, yes.
Where?
Well, Fuller's at Elizabethan Theatre, that used to be a vaudeville show. That was Fuller's vaudeville show, comedians and vaudeville show. Then across Newtown Bridge was Clay's vaudeville. Then up here, Burlham Hall, that was the Hub Theatre.
Right.
So a lot of those closed down when the talkies came in. The Hub Theatre here used to be continuous. I think it used to be 3 sessions a day.
Can you tell me what sort of acts they had? What were these vaudeville shows?
Well, there was Jim Gerald. He was a great actor, a great comedian. And there was another fellow, a local Newtown bloke, Joe somebody. I thought of his name yesterday or the day before, but I can't think of it now. Big fat bloke. And there was another one, a tall, skinny bloke. Skinny Barlin, they called him. Mo Reen. He had a partner with Stiffy and Mo, the partnership. And they broke up when they was up at Clay's. Then Clay's also had one in Oxford Street, Clay's vaudeville show. And Stiffy and Mo, they broke up when I was up there. Jim Gerald, I can't think. They used to, about every month there'd be a new troupe come in.
And would they there'd be songs and comedy and sketches? What?
Sing, musical instruments, tap dancing, chorus girls.
Really?
And up at Clay's, behind Clay's there was a lane opposite the Newtown police station. And on that side of the lane was like a stable, and that was their dressing room. And when we were kids, we used to stand there and watch the chorus, and the actors and that used to come out with all their face painted, powdered up, lippy, paint and powdered. And of course, I think they're more gay than anything else, and they know how to paint and powder themselves up without any experience. And we used to stand there and watch them come in and out. Well, we used to go to Clay. I think it was about 6 months to go into the show in those days. So,
and you would, how often would you go?
oh, I suppose I've been inside Clay's about 3 times, but there was many a time when we were kids, we used to go up there and have a look at them. going from one building to the other.
I've heard stories about people sneaking in because there was an upstairs section and you could get up the top if it wasn't a full house. And
You mean Elizabethan, like Fuller's? They call the god
The
at
gods.
the top the gods.
Yeah.
Then the mezzanine, then the stalls.
But you didn't do any of that.
Oh, I used to go to the gods. Joe, I can't think of his name. Local fella. He was very popular. But
How did they treat, like, knowing that it was a really poor area and that local kids didn't have much money, was there any sympathy to letting you
yes,
in?
you could go up to the bloke on the door or sell tickets, say there's three of us, we've only got sixpence, righto, go in. They wouldn't pull a ticket off. They used to, like those tickets, they'd pull, all right, go in like that. And then there were shows, a silver coin admission, that was in the Depression years, in Fuller's, well, Elizabethan, go up there, and you'd have amateur artists and sometimes they're professionals that come on, give a song, a bit of an act, like they raise money for the Dale in Australia Street, you know, Australia Street? Well, there used to be a wooden coal yard the other side of Lennox Street, Australia Street and Lennox Street. Jimmy Dibble's parents had the bakery on the corner, and behind that was the Newtown Cemetery. And on the other corner was the Courthouse Hotel, where I got caught by Long Tack Sam when I was having my Bucks party. That's where I got caught. Then this wooden coal yard there, they used to raise money like this here's silver coin, raise money, and they used to have a truck. They used to go down to Paddy's markets and get fruit and vegetables, and then they used to dole them out to the people on the dole.
Right.
Geez, this is all coming back, you know. A little bit of a kick.
Yeah. How did the teachers treat you at school? Just going back to the school, were you happy at school?
No, very, very unhappy. I was pushed to go to school all the time.
And, you know, like they never picked up that you had a hearing problem, even...
Never. Not until that time, as I told you, I went around to Mrs. Moran's place in Charles Street, when Matt Moran asked me questions and I was saying yes, but I was saying no. That's when they picked up and they sent the mother to come around. They said, your Billy got bad hearing. So Dr. Fitzgerald up top of the Erskineville Road, I was Elizabethan, he sent me this Dr. Waddy.
Yes.
He said it was a very peculiar case, the nerves are gone. It was not the nerves.
Look, let's just talk a bit about the general community. You mentioned that the fruit, there were people who had a fruit store who were Chinese. Well, what was the ethnic mix of the area?
Now look, up in, you know, Barron Street, where I said that baby farm was.
Oh, yes.
The trams used to run around there, and up the top of there, between Barron Street and Charles Street, was called Five Ways. Five Ways was a building that was built like that. I suppose it was about 24 foot here, just to use a figure, 24 foot here, and it'd go to about 6 foot up the front. Now, on this corner was a newsagent, Pryor. Then he had a backyard. Next to Pryor was a boot repair shop. I'll say about as big as that. And then on the point here was a butcher shop. And outside the butcher shop was a fountain. And when I come to think of it, I don't think it was there for horses, although it could have been for horses there, because outside was a fountain for drinking. But I never saw a drop of water in it, so it must have been empty or misused before my time at school. And that, well then, that's where the trams used to stop. Trams might stop for, say, a quarter of an hour. And down next to where the baby farm was a tin shed, say 10 by 10. It was the trammies' toilet, because they walk down, use the toilet, and come back, and from the railway here, for adults was tuppence, and from Circular Quay to Erskineville was threepence. And I think the kids used to get the full distance for a penny. I'm not sure.
Did most people travel by public transport, by tram or walk?
Oh, I think most of them walked. In the loop, most of them walked. And
yeah, well, what
that
about...
was a time when they was converting from steam trains to electric. Now, I remember the first electric train that ran through Erskineville on the trial run. I remember that when I was at school. I suppose about 9, I suppose, that time. But anyway, that 5 ways they call it, that's all gone. And that Burren Street, that's been excavated to allow another railway line 20, 25, 30 years ago, and it's still the same today. You cannot go through. There's still excavated there with a tin fence up. That's where Loretta took me to see the baby farm. And I said, Loretta, I'm still right.
Yeah.
Baby farm was taken many, many years ago, demolished.
And you think that baby farm, that was where the woman was assisting people have abortions, and that's where
There wouldn't be abortion, they'd have their babies. And they'd be wealthy, daughters of wealthy people who'd send their babies there, because in those days, a wealthy people's daughter, she couldn't even kiss a man, alone anything else. That was only for common workers. But the big ones couldn't do that, because they had to keep, right to marry right. To marry another wealthy man.
So they would send the babies to this woman, and what was she killing them, or were they just dying?
Killing them and marrying. They dug up about a dozen skeletons.
How did they catch on to...
I don't know. I can't tell you that. But still, I think this was before I was born.
Oh, right.
But these are stories. See, there's a terrible lot of stories you used to get about, and that's why I'm a bit windy about mentioning them, because I don't know for facts.
Yeah. Well, look, I wanted to ask, what was the racial or ethnic mix in the area? You know how you mentioned the Chinese family?
Yeah.
Were there many other... What was the racial base? I mean, there would have been Irish, Anglo-Irish people in the area. Were there any other groups of people?
Well, on the corner of Charles Street and Erskineville Street, there was a terrace of shops, say about 5 shops, safely. But when I was telling you about that celebration, did I tell you about the celebration we had in Erskineville Park?
Yes.
I don't know whether it's the end of the war or 50 years of Erskineville School.
Yeah.
The fruit shop there who supplied the fruit was Trippy's Fruit Shop, we call them. Plays an Australian, I don't know. It's too far before me. And then next to him was a fish and chip shop. And I was wondering whether his name was Huxley or not, but similar. But I think they were Irish Catholics. Next to that, I think, was the original Erskineville post office. Then they built across the road to where it is now. And then next to that was Jack Samuel's Monty D. Pete pawnbroker. He used to have the 3 building. Well, when he gave that up, he bought the Shakespeare Hotel up in King Street, Newtown. Well, then the next one was a milk bar. Then on the corner of John Street was a grocer shop, wholesale and retail, which we didn't know what that meant. Then in the back into John Street was like the stable, and on the wall was a sign there, Bushells Tea, better than the best. And when we were kids, we said, well, they could be better than the best. The best is the best, not the best. This is how we used to perform. This is how young we were. Well, they're all demolished now, and the post office is over. It used to be Pleasure Street, but I don't think it's called Pleasure Street now, and Rochford Street. Well, then this bloke had a newsagent there prior, I think he sold out, and he bought a haberdashery, or started a haberdashery shop. George Street up to Pleasant Street, there was a grocery shop on the corner, Davis, I think the name of the name. Next to that was a newsagent, Mac Maguire, and we used to call him Mac, little fella. Mac, he had a son and 2 daughters. The son became the general manager, I think, at the Criterion Shirt. This was in the 20s.
Mm.
Criterion Shirt, yeah. And then next to Max was a removalist, McQuillan. Yeah, McQuillan's removalist. That wasn't a shop, it was just barricaded. Next to that was a cake shop. Because remember, we used to look at the rainbow cake. And then next to that was a pharmacy called Henwood's Pharmacy. Then the big butcher shop, I think it's the Commonwealth Bank now, George Carey. Next was Daddy Bow, Chinese fellow. He had 3 sons, Ben, Claude, and I can't think of the other one. Next to that was Ted Turner, Delicatessen, ham and beef shop we called them those days. Next was a shop where you can go and change your comics or your Tom Dicks or anything for a penny. Next was a mix where you buy crockery, cups and saucers and this and that and everything else. And then on the corner, I think that Prior opened up a haberdashery, and he'd done so good that he built a factory down the back, down the street of Pleasant Street, but the law stopped him from being a retailer and a manufacturer too. And I think he gave up the retailer at the shop to manufacture.
Mm.
Just down Pleasant Street, and the post office on that side.
Did most people shop locally? Shop locally?
All corner shops. There was no. The only even near down markets, there was all stalls, about 50 stalls. But what I tell you that when Trippies got out of there, an Italian fella took over, Jack Sincotter. He married a Newtown girl, and a little while ago, I think I read where he died, or he got murdered or assaulted. And I saw the photos of his sons. Well, Jack was only a young man when he took over that fruit shop at the corner of Charles and Erskineville Road.
Mm.
And he used to bring young fellas from Italy to work for him, and it was $2 a week in his keep, and their keep.
Was that like in the 20s?
Because I was friendly with one young bloke.
Was that in the 20s? You're talking about Jack?
Oh, 20s, yes. Yeah, definitely 20s.
Okay.
Could be 24, 25. Might have been 14 or 15, something like that. Well, Jack Sincotter, but I'm not sure his sons have still got that shop down there now.
They have?
I think so. Because only a few years ago, I read where, I don't know whether Jack got held up and robbed or murdered or something, and his 2 sons that looked in their 60s was there. They still had the shop.
Okay.
So whether Sincotter still got it or not, I don't know.
Okay. What was the social focus of the area in the 19s? What was it? Was there a place where people met, like, or a shop where people went and would talk, or a house, or a pub? Was there a social focus of your neighbourhood in Erskineville?
Well, there was always at the Rose of Australia. That's up the top of Charles Street in Erskineville, across the road, up from the station. There was always a ladies' bar there. Men wasn't allowed in those days, and every pub had a ladies' bar.
Oh, yes.
And men weren't allowed in there, and women were not allowed in the bar.
Right.
So there was always a bit of social business going on there. But as far as Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Black and Mrs. White getting together, I don't think so.
Did people go and
There
visit?
used to be plenty of hanging over the front fence.
Talking.
Yeah. Saturday afternoon, if I can they seemed to be, if it was a bath day type of thing, because I can remember my mother, she used to have an apron, and she'd have a bath and do her hair, and she'd have this clean apron on, because that'd be the end of that day's work. But then always a big bake dinner Sunday, that's if you had it. And I think that's the trend.
What can you remember of drinking as a pastime in the area? Were people big drinkers at that time? I mean, I understand they had 6 o'clock closing.
That was when the fights used to start. When it was 6 o'clock closing, there'd be a rush to get the last drink. And if you bumped a fella to push your way in, you always got a smack in the mouth. And out the street you'd go, and the blue would be on. Then the big black Mariah, like that was a truck with a big canopy in black and wire screen door at the back. In you go, and a cop driving and a cop would be at the back. And I suppose it wouldn't be a Saturday go by if there wasn't a fight around the pubs. Then when the 10 o'clock closing come in and that scruffle for that last drink ceased, well then I think the blues ceased.
Was there a lot of street fighting in those days?
Oh yes, Murphy's two uncles, Pat and Phil Murphy, were street fighters.
But you almost describe it as, and other people, as almost like a profession. I mean, did they go around looking for fights? I mean, it wasn't like they were just getting mugged on the way home.
The same I think in any suburb. If there's 6 here and there's one bloke there, he'd get picked. But if there's 6 there, this bloke wouldn't pick them.
So what was the point of all the street fighting? I don't understand.
Well, a few drinks. And they weren't what you call bright people. They're just mob hooliganism. Now what are they, drugs now, are they? Drugs and
I don't know.
whatever?
Well, would you describe it as a safe neighbourhood?
Well, there's a couple of interpretations of safe. You can leave your doors open, and especially in the summertime, and walk up and down the street saying, hello, Mrs. Smith, hello, Mrs. Brown, hello, Mrs. Young. And you're going to be walking up and down, and you can come home, and everything can be the same as you left it. You can't do that today. And then Friday nights, up in King Street, Newtown, you'd be surprised at the population used to walk up and down the street. Because late shopping in those days.
On Friday night?
And a lot of flirting went on amongst the young couples.
But you know in these fights that they'd have at the pub at closing time,
Yeah.
were people seriously hurt?
Well, in the pub on the corner of Septimus Street, Erskineville Road, I remember when I was a kid, there was a fella there drunk with a bottle in his hip pocket. Another fella come over and smashed him, and he fell backward, and the bottle of beer in his hip pocket broke, went everywhere. Now, I don't know whether he got mutilated by it, but I don't know whether I shot off, or what. But I remember seeing that punch, and that fella land backwards, and the bottle broke under him. Well, that was I don't know whether that. I think the fellow with the bottle in his pocket was too drunk to intimidate this other fella. It was just a matter of practising how hard he can punch, I think. And that was a thing of the day.
Yeah. Well, what was the crime rate like?
Well, I wouldn't know what the crime rate was like.
Well, were there
Well, I
many
know that,
murders? Were there many murders? I mean, there must have
I
been...
remember a murder in Pleasant Avenue. There used to be lovely little cottages down there. A fella cut the throat of his wife, and I think his daughter, and also cut the throat of their canary. And I'm sure I was going to school at that time.
The wife, the child and the canary.
The wife and the daughter. Oh, he could have been an ex-serviceman.
Yeah, well, after the war, speaking about ex-servicemen, after the war, when the troops came back, were there people around who had shell shock or who didn't?
Yeah, I remember outside of that Davis grocery shop on the corner of George Street, opposite the Rose of Australia, a fella's name, well known, Albie, no. Anyway, this fella had trench feet, and he properly shell shocked. You see him shuffling along, and I saw this bloke, you know, all off, but he missed him, and the cripple ex-serviceman moved away then. Yeah.
What do you mean by trench feet?
Well, trench feet, they had deformed feet because of the years in the mud, out of Flanders and France and all that.
Oh. And what was this bloke?
Continually in the water, the rain and the mud and that. Trench feet, they called it.
Really?
Same as they were called bomb happy in those days. They called troppers in the last war. Those who, you're right?
Yeah.
Those who...
And what was this bloke doing to this guy? He was wandering along and somebody had a go at him, did they?
Oh no, he was bomb happy.
Oh yeah.
And he was, you know, he might have provoked it, but I think he was too much of a cripple to be serious about it. I don't think he had any alcohol in it. I couldn't tell he was shuffling along, you know, his feet.
What were people's attitudes to the troops that came back that were maimed or crippled or mentally not quite with it?
Well, I don't think there's very much sympathy for them. Even the bosses wouldn't employ them if they saw service in the war, because they were looked upon as mentally damaged and they couldn't manage to work the modern machinery. The wars create prosperity, improvements in machinery, same as the doctors went to the war. They learnt by amputating arms and legs and this and that. They learnt more of their skill there than they did in the university. So
are you saying that even people who came back okay, that weren't shell-shocked or damaged, are you saying that even if an employer saw that they had war service on their record, they wouldn't get a job?
This is Sue, I was 8 or 9 when this was on, and I'm only going by what, because there's a fella down from me, where we lived in John Street, there was 3 two-storey houses, and he lived in there, and when he came back, apparently he's in the Light Horse Brigade, he kept his horse. And the only job he could get was he had to buy the horse and buy a cart and go out and sell fruit and vegetables. There was no job for him.
And the army made him buy his horse?
Well, his money from his war service.
Yeah.
They were all covered by insurance.
Yeah.
And they all got a wage. Say they got five shillings a week. He'd be given 2 bob and he saved up 3 bob. The same as the last war.
Oh yeah.
They all come back with I can't.
Sorry, I thought you said that he came back with his horse from the Light Horse.
Yeah, he bought the horse. It was a grey horse.
But did he have to buy that from the military?
Yeah. Okay. And I remember one time there, he had an accident and the shaft of the cart went through the horse's stomach, and he used to bathe the horse's wound out in the street and that, down near that sewer where I was telling you about.
Okay, stop. World War I and the troops coming back. Are you saying that even the troops that came back okay, they still had trouble getting work?
Well, definitely did. Yeah. But listen, can I tell you a little bit before?
Yeah.
Just down the bottom of the street here, the railway line, there used to be a brick fence, say about 30 inches high, about as high as that. Then they had posts up here with barbed wire. Well, when the boys were coming back in the train, they'd hang out the window waving khaki handkerchiefs, because I was about 8, 9. And as they waved, we were grabbing the handkerchiefs as the diggers were going past. We thought, great kids, you know, dozens of us. Well then, up in Newtown Bridge, motor cars, they used to have little flags, Australian flags up of their mascot in front of their car, little stick, and the flags were silk, about 6 inches by 4 inches, and they'd toot their horns, you know, joy of peace and all that, and we'd jump in front of the car to grab these flags when we were kids, which kids would do.
Yeah.
It wasn't controlled by their parents, you say, and that went on. That was, well, the Elizabethan was built before then. Yeah, I remember the trams used to run along. Yes, we used to grab these, only about that size, on a thin stick. We grab them. They'd tied there by string.
They would have thought you were little terrors.
Yeah, and just down here where we used to, then we used to climb over the fence and put sardine tin openers on it, and had the trains run, and used to flatten them out, and we used to used to treat them as screwdrivers.
This is on the railway tracks.
Yeah, on the railway track, yeah.
It's wonder you didn't have some nasty accidents on the railway tracks.
Oh, you could always see from Newtown. The trains used to come from Newtown down there. The extension of the railway line came after there. Down over here there was, I think, 4, might have been 3 two-storey houses. They demolished one to get extra line in. That particular time they closed Everleigh Workshop. They had their gate down here at McDonaldtown Station, and all the workers used to come to the Cosmopolitan Hotel for their beer. Well, when they closed that gate down, they had to do that to extend the brickwork for the train to go over. And a brickie down there told me there was over 1 million bricks used in that extension. But of course, there was no trade in the pub, and it became a slow grog. And you'd take up an empty beer bottle and get it full for 9pence, whether it was clean or not, 9pence. This is when you were a larrikin, it's about 16 years of age. And the cops used to be there, say, if you don't look after us, you don't serve them. So they get their beer free. So the corruption for many, many years.
What do you know about the police? Were there any local police that were pretty well known in the area?
Well, Long Track Sam, as you mentioned yesterday.
You described him to me
You have
yesterday.
a telephone call.
Long Tack Sam.
Yeah, we were talking. What you described?
How Long Tack Sam got that name? That in the Elizabethan Theatre there was a show, Long Tack Sam the Magician. He's supposed to be Chinese, but he's very tall, very slim too, and he was marvellous. I went and saw him, and he was marvellous. Well, we wouldn't know a trick from an opera show, but he was marvellous. And Long Tack got called Long Tack Sam after that.
And
And he was about 6'6" and about 6 inches broad. And in the Sunday's paper, they had him, shown him like cleaning down, like with a feather duster and that. And he had the best record of any policeman in New South Wales force for arrests, but you didn't have to do anything to be arrested. There was a fella, I can't think of his name. Did I tell you about him getting a lay-by out yesterday?
no,
From Sweet Brothers?
no.
Sweet Brothers was over the other side of the road, and you pay a shilling a week or like your blankets. I'm sure they were blankets, and they were a big parcel, and this fella didn't get the receipt, so he was carrying this Friday night, thousands of people there, and this long tack stood in front of him. He said, "What's the parcel?" He said, "Oh, blankets from the mother. She's been paying them off from lay-by." He said, "Show me your receipt." Well, he didn't have a receipt. So he had to open the parcel there and then, with everybody walking in. As soon as he saw they were blankets, he said, "All right." And this is the type of thing that went on.
They could just stop you in the street for no reason.
Yeah. I think there was a law in those days that if there was more than two standing on a street corner, you could be charged with loitering. And I think somebody, a young girl, I heard this, whether the cops come to do a line or not, I don't know, but they stood up to the cops. And it was raining and they was in the shop window, or shop doorway, and they had to go at them. And the girl stood up to them. That was between this street and the next street, Brown Street. Yeah, there were a lot of shops up there then.
And what happened when she stood up to them?
I think the cops moved off. Because the law was loitering in those days. Over 3 people or over 2 people, you could be charged for loitering.
How did people feel about the police? I mean, did they view them as corrupt?
Oh, the people. People that wouldn't know in those days.
What do you mean?
Well, the people that in those days are not the same people as today. People has progressed with their thinking today.
Yeah. But did the people like the police or did they hate them?
The police have never been liked.
So they weren't liked?
That's what that Sergeant Swan in the ACAC inquiry, he said the cops were never liked.
But, yeah, so if you were in trouble, would you go to the police for help?
I would. But I would not expect them to do anything for me. Like if they did, I'd accept it. But if they didn't, well, just the usual run.
So, well, what did you know about, like, things like the SP booking and the sly grog? How aware were you of that, you know, and the police involvement in it? Were the police dangerous? Would you describe the police as dangerous? Were you scared of them?
Oh, I think everybody was scared of cops.
Yeah. Well, what were they capable of? What were they capable of?
Oh, I've seen 2 police walk down Erskineville Road. I don't know the name of the pub, up there in Union Street. I couldn't say if it was Friday night or Saturday night. I think it was a Saturday night. There was 2 fellas talking outside the pub. They happened to be 2 brothers. And 2 coppers walked down, just pushed them aside and back, belt them in the mouth. And off they went. But one of them wanted to carry on, and the other one pulled him back. Yeah. No reason whatsoever. They were just talking. They weren't drunk, they were just talking. And I saw that with my own eyes.
Yeah. And with that philosophy or whatever attitude in the police force, was that in the 19s and the 20s and the 30s?
Oh, yeah. I was married at 25, and that was long before I got married.
Okay.
At 35 I got married, but I was 25 when I got married.
Yeah.
It was long before then.
Was there any local prostitution around that you were aware of?
I don't know, but there was one gay fella. He lived in Gowrie Street. But I knew his brothers, they were tough boys. But he was gay.
How did you know? Because in those days it would have been pretty difficult for people
my
to...
dear, they let you know.
Yeah.
They come up and let you know.
Was being gay accepted, or weren't they more likely to be bashed up?
No, they weren't accepted, but they used to get bashed up a lot. They still do. Even though there's supposed to be freedom, but they still get bashed up. But they're very harmless people. Oh, another one used to be up here in King Street, Newtown, named Harry Foy. And when the Americans was over here, first starting the war, they went to a show and Harry Foy was there and he tried to do a line with one of the Yanks and the Yanks flattened him and killed him. And this is the first time the word queer came out in the Australian language. Queer. They were always called queens, pansies. They weren't called homosexuals, poofters or anything. They were called queers, queens or pansies. Daffodils too, faded daffodils too, was a name for them.
Faded daffodils.
Faded daffodils, yeah.
Okay. Where did most people in the neighbourhood work?
I think the best answer to that is wherever they can get a job. And there wasn't that many jobs around.
Well, what were the main local businesses in the area? I mean, you had the shops that you've already described.
The shops.
Were there any other big industries?
Well, I'd done 3 years turning and fitting in a little factory in John Street. It was the back of the house in Charles Street, and I tried to just work it out this morning. When Loretta took me around, I couldn't. But this was a little red factory, it's like a big garage, turning and fitting. And it was all...
You have a telephone call.
Yeah, the industry.
Well, I started... matter of fact, I started my first job, was in a foundry, lasted 3 days. Then I got another job in a peg factory in Mitchell Road, Alexandria.
Paint?
A peg, clothes peg, made out of wood in those days.
Right.
I don't know how long I stayed there, but then I got a job in this little engineering, turning and fitting. It was repairing boot machinery and a lot of textile, like clothing, buttonhole machines and things like that. And I was there for about 3 years. Then I went to felt textiles for 25 years. But most of the industries in Erskineville in those days was boot factories. Up the street from where I was born was Walker's boot factory. He came from Baldwin Lane, which was down the side of it, and then there was a big weatherboard cottage with a lot of property, a lot of ground. That got demolished and builder built there, Welch Brothers builder. But then wherever you go there was boot factories. McKinley at Cummins. I only thought of it the other day. Ninner's, I think Ninner's shoe store. Anyway, another one down in Park Street. Used to make the Dally M football boots, but most of them were, there was a saddlery down the bottom of Rochford Street. Most of them were boot factories around Erskineville.
What smells can you remember? When you think back to the 19s when you were growing up and you had a bit of industry in the area, what smells do you associate with Erskineville at that time?
Smells? I don't think there's any smells. No, we had no industrial smells.
No? Well, what about even the smells of the trains or just...
What, the steam trains?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I suppose the same trains, same smell as you'd have in your home with a fuel stove.
Okay.
So you're used to it.
Was there much pollution?
We didn't know what pollution was in those days.
Was the air smoggy?
No.
You don't know?
No, there was no cars. If anybody had a car, they'd stand there and watch it.
Okay. Can you remember any local characters, any local people who stood out in your mind? I mean, eccentric people or just well-known people? Was there anybody?
No.
Okay.
There wouldn't be very many well-known people living in Erskineville under those conditions.
But just people that were known locally. Can you remember any really big events? Really big occasions?
One, I think the big occasion in the 30s, the unemployed used to have a parade start go down to Erskineville and up Erskineville Road again. I think that might have been to, I think they did take up a collection to buy this food I was telling you about in Australia Street.
Okay. What did you know of the world outside your local area?
Well, I knew where Railway Square was, I knew where, I'm telling you, I knew where Circular Quay was, and I think every Sunday when we was kids we used to walk down to Botanical Gardens, and there was used to be a saying, there might be half a dozen of us, it was a saying that we know every blade of grass in Botanical Gardens, and in those days you saved the matchbox covers, Federal Matchy and Maeve, and we'd walk along the gutter picking them up. Because we're barefooted, big patches in the seat of our trousers. But as far as events are concerned, I don't know of any.
Okay. What I want to know is, in terms of rituals, like, did you celebrate Empire Day, Cracker Night?
I remember, I don't know whether it was Cracker Night, but one time we used to burn a cork and blacken our faces with the burnt cork, and we'd have a kerosene tin parading all around the streets, belting the kerosene tin or getting two pot lids, anything to make a noise.
Why?
And I don't know whether that would be Empire Day. Was it Empire Day? Oh no, Gay Fawkes Day was the Cracker Night, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah, they did. Well, they both, I think. You could have crackers on either Guy Fawkes Day or...
Yeah, that. But the other one, you blacken our face and a kerosene tin, and everybody be out in the street. There no entertainment whatsoever. There was very few homes had even a gramophone.
Well, what about, were you ever involved, like perhaps as a school kid, in ceremonies where they were, you know, saluting the flag and singing songs, where you'd have kids do mass displays of gymnastics or physical culture kind of activities?
Nothing like that.
No? What about...
we had to, every morning at school, we had to salute the flag and God Save the King, because George V was in power then.
Well, what about Arbor Day or Wattle Day? Did you do anything about Arbor Day?
Oh, I don't think we took much notice of that.
Wattle Day?
I don't think we took much notice of that.
Australia Day?
I don't remember doing anything about that.
When did they first start celebrating Anzac Day?
I can't tell you.
Yeah. What can you remember about the ending of the First World War? Can you remember the celebrations for the end of the war?
I'll tell you about the exits here,
Yeah.
and the little flags up
Yeah.
the First World War. No, I can't. No.
Okay.
I think they were more concerned about getting the job.
Yeah. Can you remember much about moonlighting and foreign orders, like people making things, say if they're working at the Everleigh Loco workshops or knocking things off, and you know you could buy things in pubs? Was there that kind of crime going on?
No, there was a time, I don't know how old I was, but there's a fellow who used to make 2 bobs out of metal.
Oh yeah.
This is very vague. I'm never involved in that.
Yeah.
I think I was the only one to ever been pinched in my family, and I got pinched, like as I said, playing football when I got to Sons when I was 13 or here, and then the Saturday before I got married. I think I was the only one in my family that went.
Well, how did your parents, when you did get arrested that time when you were 13 for playing football, what was your parents' reaction to that?
Oh, they were disgusted. I remember.
Were disgusted with you or disgusted with the law?
Oh, they just took it. brother, 2 older than me. He was about 5 foot tall. He had his own business, but I guess if you made 5 shillings a week, you done all right in those days. He went over to this minister, who was a massive big man, and the minister finished up and said, "Oh, I must have made a mistake with your brother." And I brought that up down the children's court, and the answer to that was, my brother, 5 foot, threatened this big bloke.
Oh, yeah.
I told you about Carter's Pickle, Monks Lane.
Yeah. But so your parents weren't upset with you?
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Okay.
But my mother would be upset about anything with her kids.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I'm not, because she's my mother, that is true. My mother would be upset about anything with her kids.
Right. She was on your side?
110%.
Right. Did you ever get involved in any maypole dancing or anything like that?
Maypole?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever saw one.
No, they got into that in the 30s, I think. What's your happiest memory?
Oh, God, blimey. Oh, happiest memory? God.
From
I've
childhood?
always been a
What, from childhood?
mentally backward person who couldn't think far enough to be unhappy or happy.
What about your saddest memory?
I'm very lucky. I've got a good wife and 2 beautiful kids and 4 marvellous grandkids. I think I can put that down as my happiness all in one bundle.
Okay. Now, I want to ask a couple of things probably a bit outside your childhood experience. Can you remember when the unemployed workers people took over that house in Union Street?
Took over the house in Union Street.
Oh, well, they fought off the eviction.
It went eviction. Oh, that went on everywhere. You can't say Union Street. That went on everywhere.
There was a big battle at Union Street.
It might have been,
Yeah.
but I don't remember. But everywhere, people. I'll tell you an instance now. What I'm talking about. This was a widow of a 1418 war. Widow of a 14. If I'm not making a mistake, my eldest brother told me this story. Up in Albert Street, and she had 3 kids, and you never heard me about that. The landlord was Jewish, and he demanded her body for the rent.
Oh, right.
2 little brick cottages on the left-hand side going up to Erskineville Road, the Police Boys Club. And I think it was about the 3rd one. And I remember him saying that woman has never got over that, how she had to sell herself to keep a roof over her kids' heads.
Who said that to you?
I'm pretty sure it was my eldest brother. He only died a few years ago, 93 and 7 months old. Eldest brother.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure of that. And
So the
he
eviction-
wasn't a fella who disliked a person because they're Jew or Chinese. His policy was the world is for the human race. And we should enjoy it. He was that type of man.
Yeah.
Not religious, but very political.
So, and those evictions, you can remember the evictions in the 30s, can you?
Oh, yes, yeah. I remember all about that, yeah. 3 and 4 families living in the one house. Oh, yes, yes.
Were you involved in the fights then? Were you involved in the campaigns to stop the evictions?
Oh, no. I've never been out of work in my life.
No.
I've worked since my 14th birthday.
The other thing I wanted
And I retired at 64 and a half from the New South Wales University. Or 64 and 9 months, I think. That's I think it was 20 years last April when I gave up work.
I wanted to ask you what was the impact of the establishment of the airport at Mascot on this area?
Well, I don't live in this area.
Yeah.
Most of my time as out of this area. This is my address, up the street's my address, but I'm more...
But in the 20s, like you were there when that plane crashed, I mean, childhood time. Can you remember, was there a change in the...
Well, that was long before I was married.
Yeah.
I lived in 28 John Street, Erskineville.
Yeah, was there a change in the nature of the area brought about by the airport? Did it have any impact?
I don't think it made any difference.
Okay. All right, well, look, I've just...
We never had the jets in those days.
Yeah.
We had the propeller, props, whatever they call them.
Okay. Well, look, I'd like to thank you. Is there anything you want to say that you haven't said? I've run out of questions.
What, a woman run out of questions?
Pardon?
A woman run out of questions?
Watch it. Treading on dangerous ground there.
No. No, I think when we talked to Terry Murphy, I told you I knew the mayor of Erskineville in my young days.
No, who was that?
Bert Henry.
Oh,
He had I think it was a real estate shop opposite the pub on the corner of Union Street. He had two sons, young Bert and another one. But the youngest son, I worked with him on the city council. He was a senior clerk in the town hall. And I was with the doctor, medical doctor, for a while. And when he saw me, he thought I was one of the tough boys of Erskineville, named Bluey Tie. But I said, no, I'm Bill Schwebel. And he used to come down John Street, him and another fella, learn boxing from a officer in the army. Tom Green was his name. He was a strong man. He used to lay in a bed of nails and have a block of rock on his chest and get a sledgehammer belted. Tom Green, but of course the nails were so close and never used to penetrate the... yeah. And that was...
was it a Erskineville local, was it?
He was, yes, his father was the mayor of Erskineville, young Henry, but the eldest brother was Bert Henry after his father.
And what about this guy lying on the bed of nails?
Well, this was a magician trick.
Oh, yes.
They still do it.
Yes. And was he a local who did that?
Yes, Tom lived one, two, maybe two houses from us in John Street.
Okay. There's another question actually I've thought of. In the local area, like even looking at Erskineville, Alexandria, Newtown, Redfern, what have you, Waterloo, were there some areas that were considered worse than others, that there was a social stigma, you know, attached to them?
Oh, we never used to be able to determine that. But that place where that murder was for the man, his wife and daughter in Canary, Pleasant Avenue, that looked upon one of the nicest places in Erskineville. The wide street and that trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any areas where the kids were considered tougher than the other kids? You know, because they used to form little gangs and that. Were the Redfern kids tougher than the Erskineville kids, or?
Alex of Redfern was looked upon tougher.
Alexandria?
Yeah.
And Redfern?
That was looked upon as a tough area. But of course, as I say, the average show was the number against the lack of numbers.
So were the Erskineville kids, were they a bit scared of the Redfern kids? Or?
I wouldn't say they were scared. Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say they were scared. Well, after all, only human nature. They're only the same.
Right.
They'd have a crack.
And was Erskineville viewed as a slum area?
Yes. About 2 years ago in the Sydney Morning Herald, there was an article in it about McDonaldtown. Now, there's no such a thing as McDonaldtown, only the station. It's Erskineville, Chippendale, Newtown. And it was called the slummiest part of Sydney. Yeah. But I wouldn't care what they say, Sue. It may be the poorest people in Sydney, but they were fair dinkum. Because there'd been I remember a time where there was a builder, he had a big demolition job, and he had a big truck, and he knew a woman up the street from me, from where I lived in John Street, about 6 or 7 houses up, 6 houses up, we say, and he brought this big truckload of fuel. That used to be fuel in those days, for the fuel coppers, the fuel fires, and she asked him to dump right along the street this wood from this demolition place that everybody can hit a little bit. Share and share alike. Her name was Miss Cook. She was a barmaid. And she's married to a cop.
Was there much of a sense of community in the area?
Oh, I think it was very good.
People would look out for each other, would they? Or if you were in trouble or someone was sick, were you left?
No, you were never in trouble without somebody being there. As I said about my mother being a midwife. I'd come all the time for her to help her. And I remember when, I don't know how old, but there was one fella, I remember him talking about my mother. He moved up to Canterbury. And he came down and he said, there's only one place in Erskineville I'm sure of getting a cup of tea. That's a Schwebel. My mother used to make Sundays, like the boys, all boys, we all had our mates, and my mother used to make these big trays of scones and a cup of tea. No matter how poor we were, Sundays she'd always put that on. We'd be sitting out in the yard, only had a small yard, maybe not much bigger than this. And I remember him saying, you'd always get a cup of tea at Schwebel's place. I remember him saying that. And it never hit me, that he was giving my mother the greatest rap you can have.
And were you encouraged to bring your friends home, even though there were so many of you?
We were always encouraged. We had an open house.
How many bedrooms were in your house?
There were 8 kids.
8 kids.
There was a bedroom there, dining room there, open bedroom there with curtains, and a bedroom there, and then a kitchen, brick kitchen. Then outside of that was this, what you call laundry, for all the aluminium tubs. And then in the corner over there, the 2 brothers put this concrete bath in, but then they also put in electric light. The fella who done it, he was in charge of the Newtown substation, Doug, and my second eldest brother, he called his son, who Doug, his youngest, he died, then his youngest son, Bill, called his son Doug. Now this Doug Schwebel, he's one of the top men of SA Oil Company in Melbourne. My son-in-law was down there, and he said the Dougie's going up and up, and it won't be very long when he'll be a director of SA Oil Company.
Okay, is there anything
Geez,
else?
I'm praising my family, haven't I?
Yep. No, it's good. It's wonderful. I'm just trying to think. What places around here, from your childhood, are important to you now, as a place, as a significant place?
Well, we went around a little bit this morning, love, and it's an entirely different area. Where houses were falling down, bug-ridden and all that, the homosexuals taken over control of Erskineville, what Loretta said, and they're getting renovated, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Right. So that place it's changed a lot.
Yeah, houses in my young day wouldn't get painted from one year's end to another. Wouldn't get painted from one year's end to another. Well, nobody owned them, and the landlord wouldn't paint them. All they wanted was their dollar or their dinar. Dinar was a shilling, 10 cents. It never could paint it.
Oh, I know. You know, when I was asking about the bedrooms, I was saying, so you had 3 bedrooms, presumably one for your parents and the 2 for the kids.
Yeah.
Would you each have your own bed, or would you have to sleep together?
No, you'd have a double bed. There's 3 of us in that.
Right.
And have another bed and then 2 beds, like whatever. I know.
At least it would have kept you warm.
Wheat bag kept us warm, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's lovely.